Children of the night, what music they make.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Blood Splattered Chatter. We are live on a Thursday night in week 2 of Fang Fest. Last week we talked Nosferatu. Tonight we're talking 2 of the most important vampire movies ever made. One of them, I would say, is one of the most important movies of all time. Definitely one of the most influential films ever. That would be Dracula 1931. And then the one that I actually prefer quite a bit more is Horror of Dracula 1958, known in the UK where it was made as just Dracula. So, as I said, this is week 2 of week 5 of Fang Fest. So very excited about it. We have Martin coming up next week. And again, can't wait to talk about that. But my brother, Missing Link. What up, my man? Was it first watch for both of these for you?
Yes, first watch. But real quick, I just gotta say, I love that intro. Love the Buffy or the Buffy transition. That was
yeah, that's my favorite part of the intro. I'm glad you know that.
yeah, it was my first time watching these. A little trepidation going in, but I could appreciate these, and I see what you mean. How Actors film built on things that both of these were lacking. Like I'd say the 58 one improved over the Bela Lugosi one in certain aspects, but at the same time dropped the ball. You know, we'll get into it, but
Right.
I noticed that while watching, but I enjoyed it. It was, and I will say I appreciated the 31 more. Probably they're both different beasts, but like you said earlier, like Bela Lugosi is iconic. Like anytime you think of like a default Dracula, that's him.
Totally.
You know that.
Like in the Count in the intro, like the Count is based on him. There's aspects of Christopher Lee that are definitely based on him as well. But Stu, what about you? Was it a first time watch for you?
I'd seen 1931 Bela Lugosi one a ton of times before with my mom, but the 1958 Dracula, yeah, this was my first time watching that, and Christopher Lee in that role. I know he's done it a bunch of times, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed that one. And it was fun to revisit the 31 one too, because that one was such. I think I said last week, man, that's like one of my mom's favorite books, Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was one of the first scary books that I read. It's got a special place in my heart. So like, yeah, we definitely wore that one out back in the day, the 31 version. So it was a joy to come back to both of these. Well, come back to that one and to get to experience this 58 version and the Hammer. Heard so much about the Hammer stuff, you know. So it was nice. Cool to watch it.
Hell yeah. And you did Curse of the Werewolf, which I want to ask you about that. Remind me, when we get into the Hammer one, I want to ask you like what you thought of Curse of the Werewolf. But just to set up the 1931 one, I had seen this like a handful of times prior in my life. When I got deeper into horror, I bought this fucking beautiful box set. This thing it's got Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, and The Wolf Man. And it's like it's like one of the best purchases that I've ever made. It's all of them have like fantastic special features, commentary. It's just a nice setup. But this is the first. It's not. I was mistaken. I thought this was the first Universal movie, and I was wrong. It was just the first Universal horror movie that's like undeniably a horror movie. They had done Phantom of the Opera before that, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, both starring Lon Chaney, who was supposed to be Dracula in this, but he died right before they started filming, or just a little bit before they started filming. But Carl Laemmle was the man that ran Universal, and his son was Carl Laemmle Jr. And on his 21st birthday, I don't know if he gave him like ownership of Universal, but he gave him the control of it. He says, do whatever the fuck you want. And he's like, I want to do horror. At 21 years old, he took over the studio.
That's crazy.
So he's the one that kind of sent them in the horror direction. His first idea was Dracula. It was a super popular book. obviously written, what was it, like 34 years before this? So it seems like such an ancient text, but at the time, it's like, what is that? Like American Psycho, that book is that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like as old as what Pulp Fiction is right now, the movie. But they had what they did was they bought the rights to the book and they bought the rights to the stage play. And most of what we actually get in the movie is the stage play. And there was two like main productions. There was an East Coast one and there was a West Coast one. And the bigger name, the bigger actor was on the East Coast. But Bela Lugosi, luckily, was on the West Coast. He was closer to Hollywood. They didn't want him because he wasn't a name at all. But he had been doing the play and he had been learning all these lines phonetically, which is why I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but like he didn't speak English. So they're just telling him, say children of the night. He's like, children of the night. You know what I mean? So that's what gives it that,
Awesome.
that cadence. You don't know what the fuck
Yeah.
he's saying. Kind of. I mean, maybe he does because he'd done the play quite a bit. But to me, like that's what made it stick. You know what I mean? I think of like Yoda, think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, think of Stallone, all these people. Like we imitate them so much, and that's what makes them so fucking iconic. And I never
Yeah.
noticed until this rewatch. I heard someone say it, but I noticed it when I rewatched it that one of the characters, I don't know if it's Lucy or Mina, but they impersonate him. Did you guys catch that in this? At one point, the one girl is like, the drinking wine bottles, which I think is great. Like the first ever Bela Lugosi impersonation takes place in this fucking movie. So it was iconic right away. But I really do feel like that's so, it's what like it made, you know, it made this iconic or performance so iconic. But then this, it being successful allowed them to then make Frankenstein, which I think is a way better film. Then they made Bride of Frankenstein, which is an even better film. And it just, you know, it opened up to the golden age of the Universal monster era. But I would say I was about to say it was a joy for me to revisit, but if I'm being honest, I just love the visuals. I love Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it that's hard to kind of not hard, but it's not the most thrilling. It's not the most exciting movie. There's no score. So it's just like they didn't know. It was one of the first talkies. Correction. I thought it was like the first talkie. Then again, I looked into it. I guess there was like hundreds that it came out before this, but this was the first supernatural thriller talkie. The first thing you could call a horror movie. And then the last thing I'll say in the intro part is that from what I understand and what people that know a lot more about movies and cinema than I do, they say like although this isn't the first horror movie, this is the beginning of the horror genre. Like this is when it became like, oh, like then now it's a thing. Like this is now we're making horror movies. There was Nosferatu, which is scarier than this, like by a large way. But this is really like what kicked off the horror genre. So again, I say one of the most, if not definitely the most important and most influential movie in the history of horror, at least the most like, you know, important movie.
My Russian.
Yeah.
But what up, E? What up, Sal? What up, Rogue? What up, Stu in the chat? Appreciate you guys. Chill out, man. You sexy son of a bitch. What up, man? Appreciate you being here. I'm at this crappy job, but I'm listening. Hey, I appreciate that. E, who I checked on earlier, he's out in California. He's safe. He's fine, far away from the fires. Says, best part of FangFest? All of these great voices. We'll keep working on them. All right, Link, my brother. I thought about you while I was watching this. I was like, oh my God, I hope Link doesn't fucking kill me.
Is that the PSA? Guys, are you gonna
I did.
something from this? No, were you just gonna
Yeah, I want to know what just your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Obviously my view has been tainted a little bit because I've seen so many other more visually captivating, grossing. Like, you know, I had watched this keeping in mind, like when I watch earlier films, I'm always like, you know, some people are thrown off by the over animated or dramatic, and you know, I always keep in mind that they're coming from theater Broadway. You know, that was the main source of like, not main source, but one of the bigger forms of entertainment back then. So, and realistically, it wasn't until like there's elements of it in the 60s, but the 70s where we started to get to like the hyper realism that, you know, there was always the cadence or whatever in movies. But so I kept that in mind watching this. I enjoyed it for what it is. It's an hour and like 15 minutes, you know. I really wouldn't say there's any characters. Bela Lugosi is the character. He's you could say some people get character arcs, but it's very fickle. It's flimsy, you know.
Totally.
Like Lily Rose Depp. What's her name? What's Mina? Mina. I feel like she was. I don't know. I think I remember you talking about how certain characters are introduced, and then it's like they set some shit up, and then they never go anywhere with it. I feel like they did that with Reinfeld. You know,
Yep.
he just kind of littered throughout the film until the very end. He just gets fucking punked by Dracula.
Which is the one thing I pointed out to you beforehand. I forgot until I rewatched it. They do away with John, because that's something we talked about when we did Nosferatu. All the adaptations always kind of lose Jonathan Harker
Mhm.
in the story. Nicholas Holt's character in the new one. And in this one, they don't even put him at the beginning of the story. They're like, fuck it, we're not even going to make him like a key part of the story. And I think that's kind of smart, but then it's still weird what happens with Renfield. It's just they can't escape the structure of the book and like
Yeah.
get it right. But I do feel like you're right. Like Nosferatu did kind of do it better than at least these two. And we'll argue that when we get to 1958, because the more I watch that one, the more I like what they did structurally and with the writing and that.
This one is definitely more atmosphere style. Like, it's crazy. Like Bela Lugosi has such a presence to him. Whether he's like, it's when he first gets to like London, I guess they're in, and he's like walking in the street. It was an interesting visual to see, because he's like going against the grain. Everyone's going this way, he's going that way.
Right. I didn't even think of it like that, but yeah.
They're walking at like this quicker pace, and he's just kind of like strutting slowly, and it was like, they did certain subtle things to like, or maybe that was just him, but he had a presence about him.
Mhm.
It worked, like I said, certain things I did cheesy, just because when he's like, ooh, like you are sleepy.
I found this at Goodwill for like $2. How fucking badass.
Oh, that's
I
badass.
don't know if
Yeah,
I want to blow it up a little bit, but I just loved it. I was like, $2, get out of Dodge.
I like the
Yeah, but I will say, while I have myself big, how about the one shot that they have of him where it's just him going like, I can't even make the face, but it looks like he's taking a shit.
oh shit. I did like the close-ups they did. Well, mostly for him.
Right.
There's a glare they had in his eyes.
I love that shit, man, so much.
Yeah.
And you see it, they'll do it like that's how they light Elvira. That's how they light Morticia Adams. Like anybody that has like a vampire feel, they'll if it's in a movie that is would allow that kind of thing, you'll do that. I always call it Lugosi lighting.
Yeah, I guess he did start that. But I think this it's I appreciate it for what it is. I think I appreciate the visuals more than anything. And then Bela Lugosi, like, to me, everyone else is kind of forgettable. Kind of remember Van Helsing.
But he's not great in my opinion. He's got some moments, but I think he could use some fucking work.
Yeah.
I agree. And I'm pretty much exactly there with you. Like the first thing you said is, well, it's an hour and 15 minutes long. And to me, that's like one of the things I appreciate most about the movie. I love how short it is and that it just gets going. But it is about the visuals and it's about Bela Lugosi. Sal saying, I think the friend makes fun of Nina in that voice, saying Nina wants to be Countess Dracula. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I love that. And then I says, I like that Dracula has a harem. I do too. And I love the look. I love like the first time, like my favorite fucking part of the movie happens in the first 10 seconds, pretty much, or like first 5 minutes. When you see Dracula in his like crypt area and all that, you get that zoom in on his face, and like he never looks cooler. Like all the blacks, there's no detail in the black, and his face just looks fucking crazy. But the one girl that like comes up out of the coffin like that, that's the first vampire ever shown on screen in a Hollywood movie. And to me, it's just so cool looking. And the bee that crawls out of the coffin, I don't know why, but I just adore that shot. There's something so fucking cool about it.
I did like the scene where the bat's flying in the windows and shit was hilarious. But
the bat was so much.
when Renfield is like getting knocked out, and it's like her harem of women are like surrounding him, and he kind of like just comes in out of nowhere, and he's just like, Yeah, he's
I
like,
love that.
he didn't say anything, but the sign language of it was "Be gone, bitches." Like
That like when I first watched that after years, that scene right there when he comes up on him all slow, I'm like, where's the music? And I did like
yeah,
at that point they would only put diegetic music in a movie. Like we do get it when they go to the orchestra or whatever. There's music there,
for
but they just
yeah,
thought like it didn't make sense. What do you mean there would be no music playing here? There's an alternate version which I've heard isn't good that does actually have a score. It's on the Blu-ray that I have, and the person that does the score is Philip Glass. And I'm like, how do I know that name? Why that name sounds familiar? He's the dude that did Candyman.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, this is fucking perfect. But I'd never watched that version, and I've heard that it's not good. But I have a
Oh,
hard time
damn.
believing that. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, Philip Glass is fucking amazing.
Couldn't be any better. Like, that's such a like, just take the Candyman score and put it on this movie, and like,
Mhm.
how could it not work?
I I don't know. Sometimes like I'm just taking a shot in the dark, but like they intended it to film it that way, So
Right,
it's like adding some. It's like George Lucas going and fucking with his
right,
shit
right,
afterward, and people want the OG, and it's like, this would enhance it, but there's something about the OG, that mood that you can't quite
right.
cultivate or create in other products by you could say it's debatable. Yes, it does enhance it in certain things. He's getting to see his full vision, but in this case, like we're so used to music, kind of cueing emotional moods for us and stuff like that. When realistically, back then in plays, you didn't have that, or I mean, they did
Right.
actually probably have
I don't know. Yeah,
music,
actually, it's a good point.
but
I actually wondered that because if they did do that in plays, why wouldn't they think to do it here? You know what I mean?
you're
But,
right.
but I,
Yeah,
I do feel like that's what you see. Like I know they do it now. Like why wouldn't they have done it back in the day? You've got like the band off to the side. I don't know.
Yeah. I
I
heard Nicholas Holt talking about them doing a live screening of the old Nosferatu film with like a live string quartet or
Oh,
like a
I'll see
live
that.
orchestra. That would be super dope to
that'd
see
be
Yeah,
in person.
badass.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if the audio, because you know, voice is probably a little bit easier, but I wonder if like music wasn't as easy. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a reason for why that.
Right. They what's interesting, and I want to ask you in a moment what you thought, Stu. But while I'm thinking of it, before I forget, you've reminded me that there was two other versions of this made. They made a silent version where they would just pop up and say like I am Dracula in words and shit like that because not all theaters were set up for sound just yet.
Mm.
And then the crazier thing, and this is fucking insane. They used to, instead of like dubbing was thought of like if you were going to make a Spanish dub of this, it was thought of as like really like cheap. We don't want to see dub. People didn't like it for whatever reason, which I guess people still don't like it now. But what they used to do, and this is one of the last movies that they did this, they just shot a whole other fucking movie. They shot this movie during the day, and then another crew came in at night. This is the Spanish crew. They used all the same sets, and they shot the movie. They were supposed to shoot like the movie a carbon copy, shot for shot, exact same movie. But what they did, this is fucking insane. And you can watch this movie. It's on the Blu-ray that I had. It's on every Blu-ray that you could that you would purchase of this now, and it's on YouTube. You can find clips of it. But they would come in, and the director of the Spanish version would look at the dailies and watch them and then try to outdo them for every shot, every scene. And he did. It's insane. Like if they would have taken that director
Yo.
and had Bela Lugosi do that one, it would be there's so many, and don't get me wrong, it's not like a billion times better, but it is better directed. The camera's moving. Like when you first meet Bela Lugosi on the steps, or when you first meet Dracula on the steps in that version, the camera's on a crane and it like goes up the steps and like zooms up to his face and like just all sorts of shit like that.
Damn.
In this
Wow.
one, when Van Helsing opens up the mirror and he slaps it out of his face and he
Yeah,
stands
yeah.
like that, it's like it's cool. I dig that. But he saw that he's like, oh, we could do better than that. And Dracula has a cane and there's like a bunch of cigarettes and there's a bunch of like shit in the box. And he sees it and he smacks it out of his hands and all this shit goes flying everywhere.
That's
Gives
much
it more.
better.
He
That's
just
much
outdid
better.
it. He got to
Yeah.
see everything and then step it up a little bit. I just think that's so cool.
That's
That
awesome.
is. So
I
did
gotta
they use,
watch that. I gotta
should.
find that. Yeah, that
did they
sounds
use
so interesting.
same actors, same cast?
No,
Just
different fucking cast. The women in that one are like half naked in the Spanish version. They're all like wearing spaghetti straps and their breasts are kind of hanging out and shit. Like they were just like, it's different culture. They're like, well, I think we can get away with a little bit more. but they show bite marks when I get their names messed up, but when whatever the first girl is that dies, and we see Van Helsing then like operating on her on the table or doing an autopsy, you see bite marks, which is that would have been the first bite marks ever seen in an American film, but they didn't think we could handle it. But Stu, my brother,
my bad.
Oh, you're good.
I think you guys have nailed it. So many things I wanted to hit on. Two things that I did want to say that we didn't talk about. There was I thought a really clever moment in the script during that. I think it's during the mirror scene, right? And they discover somebody who's been bitten or something that's happened. They're like, who could do such a thing? And like, as they say that, Count Dracula gets introduced in the room, and
I
it's
love
like,
that.
and the camera pans over, and I'm like, man, I saw that. I was like, that's not bad for 1931.
Yeah.
That's a clever little misdirection bit. And then also, dude, I loved Renfield's performance in this.
Me too.
Fantastic, man.
Hated it when I saw this a few years ago. I was like, oh my God, this guy's so overacting. But I
so
fucking
good
eat it
for
up
the
now.
character. Absolutely. And like the bit there at the end when Dracula runs out and they're all chasing, they're chasing him, outside the house or whatever. And there's that like one maid left, and it's just her and Renfield, and she like faints. And then you have that great shot of like Renfield crawling up to dude. I was
love
like,
it.
fuck yeah, it was great, man. That was like two of my favorite moments of the film that I took notice. Besides, like all the classic Lugosi stuff. Obviously, like just born to play this role. I love. There's a clip out there of him in an interview, and she asked him, did the role of Dracula weigh on you while you played it? He was like, yes, I used to wake up with headaches, and I found myself like lightheaded in the morning, and like even his responses are just so dramatic and
blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's just like, man, such a defining role for him and for the genre, and I'm glad that we're going to get into the Hammer one, because I like how they kind of evolved the character and the story.
I'm so glad that we did these together.
Yeah.
Just to kind of repeat myself, originally we were just going to do Horror of Dracula for this one, which we could have. Don't get me wrong. But then we did Nosferatu. It's like, it's almost weird to just do another Dracula adaptation. So I thought it would add a lot to the conversation and plus it's just cool to watch them in a row and kind of see how cinema evolves. This one, 1931, and then you've got Horror of Dracula, 1958. It's a big fucking jump.
Mm-hmm.
Big jump. Pop, pop, boom. What up, my motherfucker? What up, Robbie? Happy Fang Fest, everyone. Excited to join next week. Okay, my mans will be here next week. What will we be doing next week? Man, we'll be doing Martin, 1977. George Romero, who wrote or who gave us Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and so many classics, says this is his favorite movie that he ever made. Let it be known.
Wow.
And there's a lot of shit been talked about this movie among this crowd. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, man. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Give it a shot. It could be a banger. But I did want to, or no, I'm sorry, Stu. I feel like I cut you off.
No, bro, you're good. That's really all I had for 31.
No, fair enough. A couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, I did not know, and maybe you guys knew, I did not know how matte paintings worked. Because it's the first thing, as soon as the movie opens up, I'm like, how the fuck did they do that? Is that a real castle? Like, what am I looking at? And then I'm like, okay, I'd heard, it's matte paintings. And I know a little bit about, like, I've seen like Star Wars bits where it's like, oh, this is what it looked like. And then this is what I always thought, like, they would shoot the movie and then they would use the matte painting afterwards. Like, this was a post thing that they would do. I did not know. This is how it fucking works. Did you guys know this?
Yeah.
They would paint it and go out there and shoot it on site like that. They would shoot through the glass. So like what they're showing here in this example, and like maybe you have a castle and then you would paint on all the extra shit to make the castle bigger and more grand. And that's what they did with these shots. Like when you go in, one of my favorite shot in the fucking movie, or one of my favorite shots, is when you first meet Dracula and he's, the giant steps and this huge castle. And it's like, it's not nearly that big. They use forced perspective, like with stuff in the foreground, to make it seem way bigger. And then they use the matte painting method here to make it seem like it's way taller and way bigger than the steps. The steps are real, but like it's not nearly that grand. Same thing with the castle that you see from the outside and all that. But I was like kind of blown away by, I watched this whole thing on matte painting, just looking at all the different iconic ones. I thought that was so fucking cool.
Yeah, and it looks great when that one scene,
Yeah,
because they keep showing that castle, but that one scene when you see the carriage kind of riding through it and up to it, it looks fantastic. It's
Yeah,
really well done.
that's what I'm saying. What weirded me out is I know Francis Ford Coppola, when he did Bram Stoker's Dracula, one thing that he did is he only used effects that would have been available like in this era of Hollywood, matte paintings and all sorts of shit like that. And there's a matte painting shot in that movie. When you see that shot where it's going up to the castle, the carriage going to the castle, the camera moves. So like, how the fuck did they do? You know what I mean?
I don't
Like, how
know.
did they do that? Because I understand it with a steady camera, but you would have to really coordinate some shit. I don't know. I don't know, but it's very cool. And I'm glad I looked into it because I was confused about how the fuck that worked.
yeah, that is kind of intricate. Yes, I feel like. Why don't we do that more?
Oh, what's Robbie saying? First of all, he says, "Love Martin, a favorite of mine." Hell yeah, we reviewed it a few years ago on Dylan's horror show. Which, by the way, I didn't know it, and Dylan didn't know I was doing this, and Dylan's doing I don't know what he's calling it, Fang Fest. He's doing a Vampire Month as well. They're doing all Dracula movies, so they're actually
Nice.
ending their month with Horror of Dracula. They're doing Dracula 1979 and Nosferatu 1979, which is one we didn't talk about last week. That's definitely worth checking out. But Sal said the castle and the underground crypt set looks so cool. I agree. I love that underground crypt set. It's like the coolest part of the movie.
Yeah.
Robbie says, I think Lord of the Rings is one of the last Hollywood movies to use mad paintings. Says, quote me on it. I know what I'm talking about. Quote me. Look it up. Fact check me. That's what he said. That's what he said. But all right, I forgot that we were about to fucking rate this thing. So let's do that. It's a tricky one to rate, man. You know what I mean?
It is.
So go based on whatever the fuck you base things on. But your enjoyment, of course. But I want to know where you at on it, Link. You guys in the chat too, out of 5.
I'll give this one first time watch. 3.75. Like I said, I've seen so much, so that has tarnished my view in a sense. But I was surprised that I thought this was going to be something I was kind of a struggle to watch, or I'm like, oh my. But it wasn't, it was it's different, but it's a breeze. Hour 15, hour 14, and it's cool to see. It was just cool to see for me, mostly, like, just like, oh shit, like everything is based off of Bela Lugosi, like that he is the default vampire throughout history, like that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how one dude, they based a performance off him and kind of never let it go.
Just imagine if he didn't, like, if Lon Chaney hadn't died. Don't get me wrong, he's like a legend, but he wouldn't have had that voice, and it wouldn't have been. It would have changed the fucking world. You know what I mean? Vampires would not talk the way vampires talk now if it wasn't for Bela Lugosi. Like, period.
And like, I was thinking about while watching this movie, the Dave Chappelle joke he had done on his specials many years ago. This is like where he's like, you're off by. He's talking about a pimp getting money from his hoe.
3
like,
pimp smacks.
Yeah, you're off. I've been counting 1, 2. But just stuff like that. we would not have from Bela Lugosi, and it's interesting because the character. It's not like he created the character; like the character existed before him, but he imprinted himself to that, where they're like intertwined. So, it was just a cool history lesson, if nothing else.
But that's how I felt about it. Like, I always say all the time, it's like reading Fantastic Four #1. Not the most thrilling shit, but it's really cool to be like, oh man, this is the beginning. It's like the first one. That's where it all came from. It's so it is like it's like studying shit. That's what I'm getting out of it, more than being thrilled by it or anything. But there's enough there to make it really worth it, I feel like.
Yeah. And it's a breeze. Hour 15, bro. Like,
right. Hell yeah. So 3.75 from the missing link. Of course, Robbie says perfect 5, you digs. One of my favorite movies. I respect that. And like I said, dude, I would have given it, if you would have asked me before, I'd be like, it kind of sucks. But for whatever, rewatching it now after digging into horror in the way that I have over the past few years, I did appreciate it a lot more. Robbie says Dracula is the first supernatural horror movie with sound. So many tropes come from this movie. Quote me.
Oh, first one sound.
He said quote me again, so it's got to be true. But all right, Stu, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna go 4 out of 5, man. This one is like you guys said, it's a little iffy at times, like on the rewatch, but you know, I don't know if we're sitting here talking about Dracula and vampires in 2025 without this movie. You know, and you think about, like you said, dude, how many things came from this, you know, the Count, like you have in the interview, in Sesame Street, like so many cultural touchstones come from Lugosi in this role. So and like Robbie said, the tropes abound. So just on a historical respect level, I got to give it some props. So 4 out of 5 for me.
Hell yeah, man. And then like I really do wonder, like, if this wouldn't have done well, would we have got Frankenstein? And like, of course we would have got the horror genre eventually. It would have came, but in what form? What if something else had hit that had a different aesthetic and it just informed the history of horror in like a completely different way? Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's such an important movie because of that. You've convinced me, because I was either right there with you and Sal at a 4, or I was right there with my brother Link at a 3.75. Because if I'm talking my overall enjoyment, you know what I mean? It isn't that fucking enjoyable, but it's not fucking bad either. It's not that slow, and sometimes it's interesting to see how slow it gets. It's like, oh man, like they really had a lot of fucking patience. You know what I mean? Like they'll just let things develop in a really different way. My man saying, what up, Cable Channel 11? What up, man? Says, I appreciate both movies, but lean towards Horror of Dracula. It was my parents' generation of Dracula. Yeah, it's my parents too. Pretty much, if you're English, especially, Christopher Lee is the motherfucking man. Like there's no touching him. He's a big Hammer horror is a really big deal to a certain sect of people. And it was really like it's like the only game in town in a way. So let's get into it, man. Oh yeah, I guess I did it. A 4 from me, 3.75 from Link, and a 4 from Stu. So let's get into 1958's Horror of Dracula. And the way I look at this, pretty much we go from the Universal era, which to finish up that, I did want to say, like where they wrap up or where they continue from that is Dracula's Daughter is the sequel to Dracula. And at the very beginning of that, you know, at the end of 1931, Van Helsing kills Dracula off screen. You're like, what? You're like, what? Like that's how he dies. That's how he ends. You got to rewind it. Did I miss something? It's like, no, that's how it ends. The way the sequel,
I did rewind it. Sorry,
I figured you did. The way the sequel starts in Dracula's Daughter, they arrest Van Helsing. They're like, you did what? He's like, yeah, no, I killed him. He's a vampire. Like, well, you can't fucking kill people. So they arrest Van Helsing. So I just think that's a crazy thing. And then there's a Lon Chaney Jr. plays Dracula in Son of Dracula, I think 1944, 1945. And then there's Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein, where Bela Lugosi comes back. And I've never seen this, dude. And everybody I say, I know everyone looks down on me when I say I haven't seen it.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
So yeah, it's basically like after like, what is it? It's 15 years or so of them making these monster movies. They become silly. They become kind of like meant for kids in a way. People think they're a bit of a joke, so they start parodying them with the Abbott Costello movies. But supposedly that's the shit, and that Bela Lugosi is kind of great in that. And then yes, Robbie, I left out House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. Thank you, brother. As I was saying, I'm like, I know I'm missing something. I didn't write them down, and Bela Lugosi isn't in either of those though. But anyway, back to 1958. After that Universal era, we get the Atomic Age. And that's what, like, you know what I mean? Once the nuclear bomb existed, that's what people's fears were focused on. And that's what the movie industry focused on. Giant bugs, giant ants, and all things of that nature until 1958 with Horror of Dracula. And it's funny. I was just thinking about this right before we got rolling. But what this is, it's like the remake era of the 2000s. They remake all those famous, just like remaking all the slashers from the 80s and the 2000s. They remake all the classic monster movies, but a little bit more grounded, a little bit more believable, higher production value. You know what I mean? It's pretty much the exact same thing. But Christopher Lee, of course, starring in this one, along with Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. Peter Cushing, both these guys I know from Star Trek. Of course, Peter Cushing is Tarkin from Star Wars Episode 4, and then Count Dooku, Christopher Lee Count Dooku in Episode 1. But I fucking love this movie, man. I saw it a few years ago for the first time. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I watched it 2 weeks ago when I knew we were going to do it, and I was going to make you guys watch it. And I was like, oh, fuck. I hope they don't hate me. I don't know why. It was just like so slow to me and dry. And then I watched it again last night. I fucking loved it. I loved it. After watching Nosferatu, the original and the remake, and then watching Dracula 1931, and then going back to this. And I just think like Christopher Lee is great. Peter Cushing is great. The story is so tight. They cut out a ton of shit, but they twist some things around, and I really love what they do with Jonathan Harker, where he's like an agent. He's like an agent of Van Helsing. Once he gets there, it's like, and I'm here to kill Count Dracula.
I love that. I love the moment in the diary, like where he kind of lulls you to sleep, and then like he's finally. I love like Dracula comes to make sure, and like when Dracula's walking away, he's just like watching him the whole time, like all suspect. I'm like, oh shit, what's going on here? And then like, yeah, he delivers that line, like, you know, I'm here to finish this beast or whatever. I'm like,
dun, dun, dun. I almost hit you guys up last night. I didn't know if you guys had seen it yet, but I had heard when they did the score, which I fucking love. Dun, dun,
so
dun.
good.
What he's thinking in his mind there is Dracula.
Ooh,
so so the whole movie, you're like Dracula. Fuck yeah. It adds a lot to it when you're thinking of it like that.
It's so good because with this genre and this, it's particularly like vampires and stuff like that, you're so used to like dreading like dreadful strings and, you know, the orchestra stuff like that. I love how there's like so much like bombastic horns in this one, but it works, man. Like they really pull it off.
Crazy.
It's it's not a score you would expect or think would be attached to a horror movie or a vampire movie, but it's excellent. It really works.
I'm forgetting his name, Terrence Fisher. Yeah, Terrence Fisher was the director of this one. He did a lot of Hammer's like best movies. But what the fuck was I gonna say? Where the fuck was I going with that?
We were talking about the music.
Oh. I don't know. I got distracted by reading Robbie's comment, and he's right. He said I should have been on this show. You guys don't know shit. Quote me, he says. I don't know. I don't know where the fuck I was going with that. I apologize.
No, that's all good, dude.
All right. So I guess that's it. I guess that's what I have for the intro, man. I'm dying to know, man. My brother Link, what did you think? Horror of Dracula, 1958. First watch.
I liked it. These were, like you said, these were very similar movies. I think they improved. Like this, you know, there's more meat to the story. Better performances. I will say that, you know, Bela Lugosi is iconic, but Christopher Lee, he was just as cool. Like he had a presence to him, but I found him to be like more charming. Like he could talk to people easier, I guess. You know, like that. That's how, you know, Bela Lugosi is more of like a sophisticated, mysterious. Like he's gonna woo you with that. Christopher Lee is like he just could charm you. You know, he could talk you out of your socks type of shit.
You know what the big difference for me is, or the scene that really illustrates that, is when he sees Lucy. Because that's one thing that they do that freaking annoys me in this movie. They switch Lucy and Mina's characters. So Jonathan is with Lucy just to confuse the shit out of everyone. But like when he sees her picture, he's like, charming. You're a very lucky man. When usually it's like this really creepy scene where I'm leering at your lady. But yeah, Christopher Lee's like, oh, that's nice.
It's so subtle and good. Yeah,
and he doesn't give a shit. Like originally I'm like, oh, look at how much he's hiding his obsession with her. But really, like when I paid attention to the story, he only came after her as revenge.
Yeah,
it's because Harker killed his woman that he had, so he's going to take his woman. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
And I thought that was like a cool little twist in the plot. Like it's kind of like it's revenge. Now it gives a reason for him to be out and about and things. Like he was just kind of chilling until you guys came in my home and tried to fuck over.
Right. That's a good point.
I thought I like the. I mean, obviously it's not black and white, but since it was the colors were very vibrant and vivid. I feel like for 58 horror, I don't know too many horror films from around that time. Maybe they're all like that,
especially that blood, that red blood.
It's very deep red. But yeah, it's effective. I like the color palette. I liked Van Helsing in this one a lot more.
Fuck yeah.
Can we say? But he was just a lot. He wasn't like the other dude was stiff, but he had his moments. This is a Van Helsing. I was just like, I could see him being Hugh Jackman when he in his younger years taking care of shit.
Yeah,
So
that's hilarious.
no,
I love what they do, like structurally with him too, where they kill. I think it's another really good choice in this one. Kill Jonathan, clean him up, get him out of the fucking story, so we don't have to worry about it. Why is he, why is his character like devolved so much throughout the story, or is not as important by the end of it? Kill him, get him out of the way, and now it's Van Helsing's story. 24 minutes into it, that's one of my favorite things about the script.
But yeah, I know I was gonna say I might have enjoyed this one a little bit more than the Bela Lugosi, but they're about on an even kill for me. But I just like them for different reasons. But I think they're both there's definitely more to this one. I could definitely see this being easier to watch for some. It just there's more going on. The first one is kind of even though it's iconic, it's kind of we got to be honest, it's an acquired taste at this point.
Robbie says the blood is like melted crayons. I love it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Get used to it, because when we're doing our Road to Halloween series, we're gonna see a lot of that deep colored blood on the way to. I think the dude's name was Dick Smith, who's the practical effects guy that kind of came up with the blood formula that everybody used after that. He taught people how to do blood. But all those Italian giallo movies and all that, they all have this kind of like crazy red ass blood. Robbie says, watch The Vampire Lovers. Great vampire film. Very sexy. Very sexy indeed. Dude, I love the follow-up to this is Brides of Dracula. Brides of Dracula with no Christopher Lee, but it does have Peter Cushing in it. And I think I might like that even more. That movie's awesome. Super badass movie. And then they did, just because I have this and I can show it off, the real sequel to this one, which doesn't have Peter Cushing, is Dracula Prince of Darkness, that came out 1966. It's a lot like this could be on our Road to Halloween thing. It's a lot like a slasher movie. We've got this group of people. It's just like, it feels a lot like a slasher movie, and he kind of feels like a slasher villain in it. He doesn't speak, he just menaces and lurks and shit. It's pretty awesome. I kind of love it.
He doesn't speak at all?
Nope, not a fucking word.
Oh wow.
He hiccups once.
He's got such a great voice. That's wild.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't think they knew what to do with him. And there's all these different and that continues to be the case for the rest of the series. He does 6 or 7 of these, and he rarely speaks in most of them after this. And he kind of says, I just did them because the crew needed work, so I just kept doing them. But the dialogue sucks so much that I wouldn't say it, is what he says. And then there's some people say he didn't say it because we didn't write it. So I don't know what to believe, but he does not say much.
Well, to tie into that, I was gonna say there was some cool. He had a good look to him, so maybe they were trying to play off that, because there were a lot of cool close-ups in this one of his he's doing. Well, you got it down here, obviously.
Right.
He's got an emotive face, so maybe they just. I mean, he's a wonderful actor. I don't know why they wouldn't want to. I believe him more so than them.
I don't think they knew how to write him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I just think they don't. I think that's why Michael and Jason don't talk that much, or you know what I mean. Why we get slasher villains like that, because it's hard to write them without making them sound corny.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? And then plus they didn't have the source material, because you'd already used up most of the Dracula the book. But yeah.
They could have tried to do that one line, the classic Bela Lugosi, there are far more things worse than death, or whatever, however he said it. I would have liked to see that kind of played on, but they weren't really. It's interesting because they had more dialogue, but I feel like 31 had more iconic lines.
Yeah. Well, it's because, and I love that too, Robbie. The bloodshot eyes looks fucking insane. The you know how in 31 they put Dracula, Dracula goes to the play, Dracula shows up and talks to Van Helsing. I don't know how much of that is from the book. I feel like more of that is from the play. And this, he doesn't, he's not going around chatting with people when he goes to London.
Right.
He's just in the shadows at that point. But Stu, my brother from another mother, dying to know what you thought. First time watch. What'd you think, man?
Loved it, man. Loved it. I thought it was incredible. Like you said, dude, I love the liberties they took with the story and mixing the plot around and the characters. We already touched on it, but I loved bringing Harker in, as like a little, like you said, a secret agent subterfuge, and then killing him off early. I thought, dude, the sets on this movie were fucking insane, man. They were just so grand and epic and glorious. I love that shot when what's her name entices the kid into the garden. Is it
Oh,
Lucy?
Lucy.
Is that Lucy? Yeah.
Everything with
Dude,
Lucy, I fucking love. Every scene with her in it.
It just looks gorgeous, man. It's so well shot. Yeah, the practical effects, like you guys said, the bloodshot eyes, the way the bite marks looked, the scene at the end, like his whole disintegration. I thought
I love that so much.
I just thought they brought it. Like it felt so like that shot at the end just felt so, you knew it was practical effects and not all the way real, but it just looks so polished and well done.
Did that kind of like not shock you guys? I don't want to say it, but where you're like, whoa, okay, was not expecting that, right?
Yeah, when we got the full on like shot, the continued shot of the face, like I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Because they were just doing limbs at the first, you know what I mean? Yeah, once they gave us like
so cool. I love I mean, now that we've touched on the ending, it's weird, like it's really slow leading up to that, really fucking slow for a minute. Like when they're draining Lucy's blood or whoever it is, Mina's blood, I think at that point.
Yes, it is.
And like Peter Cushing's really taking his time, like dicking around with shit. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, we're going to Dracula and we're getting him. And it's like really, there's like 3 minutes left of the movie and they just squeeze it all in. Jumps up, pulls the curtains down, grabs the candlesticks. It's so epic. And that's the first time anybody used a self-made cross. You know what I mean? It's first time. This is the first time that there'd ever been fangs in a vampire movie. It's the first time that there was ever blood in a vampire movie, especially the first color movie. Yeah, color movie with a vampire in it.
Speaking of the first, the bite marks, how they kind of left like bumps. I've noticed that in a few other. I'm wondering if this is a movie that established that, because I noticed that in like the first Blade movie when the doctor chick, the badass doctor chick gets bitten and she's like checking out her neck. There's always like these little bumps there, other movies just kind of have them as like
holes.
Right. So I'm wondering if this is the first movie to establish like they kind of look like mosquito bites in a
exactly infected like mosquito bites.
Do we see in the 19th? I'm getting confused right now from watching these back to back. But like in this one, 1958, I know we see the cross get put on her head and it burns that mark, which I love that. It's crazy iconic. The scene like right before that where Peter Cushing just comes up and holds the cross out to her, and she does that.
That's so good.
Everything with Lucy's so good, man. When she's like in the bedroom and she just opens up the door and she's like waiting for him and shit. But
that's crazy when she's like begging the nurse to remove all the protections and stuff. That was a really great scene as well. And dude, before we move on, and I lose my train of thought.
Please.
I just want to say I thought Peter Cushing did an amazing job in this, man. I know everybody talks about Christopher Lee, and rightly so, but like that scene when he uncovers and finds his boy Harker in the casket, and he's like overtaken with emotion, and like
how good does Harker look too? I don't know why. He just why does he look so cool with the fangs?
Great shot, it's such a great shot, man. But I really thought, like you said, they made it his movie. And he really had to carry like the effective weight of it. I thought for so much of it, and really did a great job being both cold, calculated, doing what he had to do, also being like emotionally receptive when he had to be. I just thought like I was just so impressed, and I really looking back on that guy's career, it's kind of crazy how he got typecast as a horror actor because I think like Lee, he was a true thespian and could have really done so many amazing things.
Well, he did a lot of work with Hammer. Like right after this, him and Cushing did the Hound of Baskerville, big Sherlock Holmes. It's like one of the most celebrated versions of the most celebrated Sherlock Holmes.
And he did what? Van Helsing. How many times did he play Van Helsing? Like 5-6 times?
I'm not sure. I know after this he did Brides of Dracula, and then with Christopher Lee later on he did Dracula AD 1972, which has like a 20% on Rotten Tomato, but I love it. They bring Dracula to the future, to 1972. He's in. How the fuck is he in that? He is in it somehow. Peter Cushing is. And then he does Satanic Rites of Dracula. Some of the names of these are the shit.
I know, right?
Dracula, Prince of Darkness, Taste the Blood of Dracula is one of them. It's like so fucking dope. I love Robbie saying, I had to point this out. This really threw me off, especially the first time, that I've grown to love it. Where he's like, "I am Dracula and welcome to my house," and it's like the camera. He's like, "I am Dracula and welcome to my house." You know what I mean? He's like right up in the fucking grill. But I love it. I've grown to really like it because what are you gonna do? I am Dracula. You gotta do it your own way.
Yeah, it's very polished English gentleman.
Holy
It's
shit. Robbie says he played Van
Damn.
Helsing 9 times.
That's
So, yeah,
wild.
he was doing it in movies with and without Christopher Lee then, for sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying that dude had so much more in him acting wise
Was-
than playing Van Helsing 9 times.
Was this time he played Van Helsing?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think he's I prefer him over Christopher Lee. Not, they're playing two different roles, but I appreciate what he does more than Christopher Lee any day of the
Absolutely.
week. I think he's a better actor. He's more well-rounded, and he's just both of them have those faces. But Tarkin, Peter Cushing, he's got this crazy iconic
Right?
cheekbones and just the way he rolls his R's when he talks, like he's
Yeah.
trying to be Bill Skarsgård and shit. Who the fuck you think you are? Like he rolls his R's when he talks in Star Wars too. I always thought that was so cool.
Is this the first movie that did the dramatic like pull down the curtain and expose him, hit him with the daylight like with scene? Was that
as far as
that was so well done and choreographed? I just loved like jumping on the table and running, and that was just great.
It's my favorite part of the movie. I've really, really grown to like love the shit out of this movie because there's so many moments. Like when I made the intro for Fang Fest, I wanted to take so many visual moments from Horror of Dracula, and I didn't even realize how much I liked it until I was doing that. And I'm like, I don't know. There's like visually, it really is incredible. Like when you see when they kill, when they show the Dracula's woman at the beginning when she gets killed, and all of a sudden she's an old lady. Something about that. That's really
yeah.
Cool. Oh, and then my favorite bit of the movie, two moments right there, is when the sun comes up and it's on Christopher Lee's face, and he just does this slow, kind of awkward, but like slow smile to show his fangs, and then you see the sun setting outside at the same time, and then right after that, Van Helsing's downstairs, and he's looking upstairs out this door, and you see the shadow where there's like fuck would you call it? There's like a railing, so there's all these lines like in a shadow.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you see all the lines disappear, and it's like it's Dracula coming. I thought that was like so fucking cool.
Yeah, there's a few times in this movie where Lee showed up, and the way they framed it made me think of Eggers' Nosferatu with the shadow and the way he looked, just tall and imposing, and yeah.
Hell yeah. Robbie also saying he is also Dr. Frankenstein and almost all hanger. Yes, dude. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, man. Before this movie, they did Curse of Frankenstein, where Van Helsing, as Robbie said, is Frankenstein, and Christopher Lee is Frankenstein's monster. Very cool. And that was a big hit. And as soon as that came out, they're like, we're doing Dracula. Hell yeah. Christina Payne, what up?
Christina,
appreciate
what up?
you. Reminded everyone to slash that thumbs up button. Really appreciate that, Christina. Hit that like button. I never say that, but I should.
Pop-up video with Robbie's fun facts tonight.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. And yeah, Robbie, if you want to just hang out in the chat next week for Martin, that's fine. It's up to you either way. Just as long as you're there.
And he saw us doing it. He's like, I want to get in the chat and tell those fuckers what time it is.
I wanted to mention just a couple things that they didn't do. There's no, because, you got it. It's a big fucking book. Well, it's only a 400-page book, but it's a jam-packed book with a lot of stuff in it. So they had to cut a lot of things. There's no Demeter. I could have used the Demeter trip. Like, you know what I mean? Get a kill scene on the boat. The boats are cool. I don't know. Dracula on a boat. It's always good fun. I could have used that. What's that?
I'm sorry. Now I was gonna say, how many films like stray away from that scene? Because it's like even Nosferatu, the newest one, you could easily, Eggers could easily had a small little.
Well, even 31 didn't do much with it. I liked the scenes in 31. That's one particular when they show Bela Lugosi like standing out there. First of all, he's wearing all black under his cape. I think that looks really cool. Striking. And like the restoration that they did on the movie is fucking crazy. I don't know how good the copies are that you guys watch, but I hope they were as good as the Blu-ray that I watched on, because it's how good the movie looks, and it's almost 100 years old. Is crazy. And they restored the Spanish version too, which is really cool. And they both look incredible. But no Demeter trip, no blood scene, which is something I always kind of look forward to. It's kind of a big ass deal. Like there's no Jonathan Harker cutting himself and then Christopher Lee noticing it and being all crazy about it. And I was like, why? Like, I wonder why they didn't do that. But they wanted to make it short, but they just gave us that. Like, they went really all out on the scene where Christopher Lee comes in and sees Harker with his woman trying to take him. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but I feel like they're just like, we're just going to wait and go full animalistic Dracula in that scene. And then we don't see him again until Harker's killing his old lady. And then at the end, I guess. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention is no xenophobic themes. So this is really interesting to me. Usually Dracula's a foreigner from a foreign land, and he's coming to London. He's going to spread disease. He's going to take our women. You know what I mean? So it's this whole, there is this, and originally, when the book was written in 1987, Europe was going through this huge mass migration thing where migration was a big fucking topic, just like right now. And so there was a lot of fear of people coming in from foreign lands to take our women, and they're going to bring their filthy ways through Europe. And I feel like my theory is that in 1958, they were so close to World War II that they didn't want to touch it. They're like, we've had a lot of issues with xenophobia. You know what I mean? UK's even like that right now. They're like, we better not fucking say anything. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. And I really feel like that's what was going on then. But it's interesting that they cut it out because he's English and he goes to England.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like maybe it's because I don't know how that would really change it, but this one is more revenge, like I'm thinking he didn't react to the blood is because he's more composed. Like maybe he knew that they were trying to get I don't know, maybe he knew out for him, so he had to keep himself more composed and at the ready. I don't know. I was looking forward to a scene like that, but
I wish there was that scene, but I get why there's not. Robbie said, just watch Eggers Nosferatu on Sunday. Loved it so much. Defoe, best Van Helsing ever. Where would you put it, Robbie? Robbie, what's your favorite adaptation of Dracula?
Untie this girl.
Defoe was a good mixture of like the old dude from Lugosi's one, the 31, and Peter, what is
Cushing. Dude, I don't know why I love Peter Cushing so much, but until this week, I always have the hardest time thinking of this guy's fucking name. I always want to call him Tarkin, and that throws me off. And then I want to call him Van Helsing, and that throws me off. The man's name is Peter Cushing. But really, though, he's just a treasure, man. I love like seeing these movies just for him. Christina's still saying she is not a bot. She promises. Prove it. All right. Did you guys want to touch on anything else before we rate this bad boy? I'm trying to look over my notes. I feel like we've hit everything. The music is banging. The ending is banging. Lucy is awesome. Peter Cushing is awesome. Christopher Lee is a fucking animal. I think we hit everything.
Because you brought it up earlier that because it caught me off guard. But I've had felt like the last 20 or so minutes of the movie kind of really kicked up into overdrive. I was like, oh shit, it's like tossing each other around, fighting. It's like this whole thing. And I couldn't help but feel it's like we got to do the opposite of the 31 ending because that shit was so climatic. It's not even funny. I'm like,
right.
He catches him sleeping, bro. I mean, sometimes you get caught with your pants down. That was an instance, but
like off screen. I couldn't believe it. I was like, no. I must have missed something. It says a lot. Like 1931, that's what they could get away with. You know, it's funny with this movie. I'm a piece of shit, but I was like, this movie was shocking when it came out. That's what they say. You know what I mean? I don't know how shocking, but they do say it was like, it's a pretty scary movie at the time.
Are you talking about 58 or 31?
50. Well, both of them actually, but I'm talking about 58. But what I did is I let my 2-year-old watch this with me for a good part, and I'm just like, I think a modern day toddler has probably about a pretty good comparison to an adult in 1958. And she was a little bit scared of this movie. She was like, what the fuck? Like when Christopher Lee comes out all crazy, I ended up covering up her eyes. And then when he came out again, she covered up her own eyes. I was like, oh no. But she reacted. I'll just say that.
I love that line. A modern day toddler is equivalent
It's about
to
the same level as
Don't you think so? Like it was shocking. It's like really? It's hard to like put like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like as far as like intelligence and things like that. I think they were just as intelligent as we even like ancient people were. But as far as like what they could handle in pop
horror
culture,
sensibilities. Absolutely, yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
we're desensitized. My
Yeah.
daughter, my 2-year-old is already slightly desensitized. She comes in my room. I've got crazy shit. Sometimes my wife likes to put this fucking mask on.
Oh Lord,
It's fucking so scary. I'm like, really? She's like, she'll be fine. I'm like, you kidding?
that's
Anyway,
awesome.
all right, let's rate this bitch and get up out of here. Horror of Dracula, 1958, first watch. By the way, Robbie said his favorite is Todd Browning's. I respect that. I don't fucking believe it, but I respect it. But what are you rating Horror of Dracula, 1958, Link?
I think this one is a little bit more punchy. Had it was a little bit. It wasn't too much. It was only like 2 minutes longer, so but it's not like it ran longer. I think the last 20 minutes really made up for it for me. Where I was like, okay, all right, hunting this bastard down finally. Because it was whole back and forth. But I'll give this one a 4. I thought not as iconic as it's first time watch, I'm good, but it's not taken away from the iconicism of Bela Lugosi's, but in terms of entertainment, I think this one's a bit more punchy. It's got more going on with the script. The characters aren't as forgotten about, like the whole what's the dude's name at the beginning, like that
Harker or
yeah,
Renfield in 31, Harker in this one, yeah.
mesh. But there's a reason for him to not be in half of the movie at a certain point because he's killed off. So, and Peter Cushing, just like we said it throughout the stream, he's a gem. Just talk about commanding presence. Bela Lugosi was the man, but so was Peter Cushing because he certainly had presence as Van Helsing. So I'm going to give this one a 4. I like what they did with it. Like I said earlier, I like the whole vibrant, vivid color palette they were going for. The greens and the blues, and like you were saying earlier, the crayon red blood. But yeah, 4 out of 5.
Hell yeah, man. Robbie's saying the shot in the crypt where the camera is moving up to Dracula's face, perfection from Todd Browning. Funny enough, they say,
what movie is this?
He's talking about 1931. He's talking about the beginning.
Oh, okay.
The first time that we really see Bela Lugosi. What is his name? Carl Freund was a cinematographer. Don't quote me. Quote Robbie. Carl Freund was a cinematographer for 1931, and this is kind of like a Poltergeist situation where it seems like he really directed the movie. Like all the actors, if they're asked like who told you what to do, they're like, who was Todd Browning again? They're like, I talked to Carl Freund. I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but they really say that Browning didn't direct it. The actor
did Browning do Frankenstein? Did he go on to do the other? No.
No, that was James Whale.
Okay.
Who did most of the best stuff for Universal? Well, I mean,
what else did Todd Browning did Browning have any other films after this?
He did, but I don't know. Them. I think he might have done Freaks in 1932, which is a kind of a big deal. I hear people talk about it. Robbie says, "Yep, Carl Freund, director of The Mummy." Okay, cool.
Okay,
which a lot of people say like The Mummy is really okay. Do you? That's I want to knock all these out with you guys eventually. We won't drown you guys.
I did that on PCP Movie Night.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, speaking of, I wanted to ask you, and then you can rate the thing after that.
Excuse me.
Curse of the Werewolf. I think you did that 1961. You did that during Horror Fest on Pop Culture Philosophers. What up, Rogue Collecting? Appreciate you popping in, my brother from another. What did you think of that? And like, how does it compare with this one for you?
I thought it was solid, but this one is like the way
a lot better.
This one's
a lot better,
you did it too, Link? Okay.
Yeah.
This one is like, head and shoulders above that one to me.
Interesting.
You can feel the budget in the werewolf one.
That's a good point, dude. This one feels very like they didn't spare any expense.
It does feel lush. Oh, I'm so glad I thought of this, man. The fucking outfits. We need to bring back the quarter capes.
Yeah.
This over the shoulder shit. Like, why don't we like? You know what I mean? They were doing that in 1930. They were still doing it in 1958. Where do we lose that, man?
You know
Why
what
can't we
vibes
have?
Helsing was giving me? He was giving me like Matrix Reloaded Neo vibes.
Yes, yes, that's awesome. He could, dude. If he had the Neo glasses, he could look cool.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right.
Uh,
I didn't. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, what's your score, Stu?
I'm gonna go 4.5, man. This one was damn near perfect for me. I loved it. I thought it was engaging from the start. I loved, taking liberties with Bram Stoker's Dracula is a bold move to make, but this movie pulled it off very well. And yeah, superb roles from Cushing and Lee, and amazing sets, amazing cinematography, practical effects. 4.5. Amazing soundtrack as well.
Yeah.
4.5 out of 5. Yeah, man.
Robbie says he likes Curse of the Werewolf just a smidge more. I gotta watch it. It's got Oliver Reed in it. I definitely need to see it. I'm with you, Rogue. Let's bring back capes. Make capes great again, for fuck's sake. Come on now. I'm giving this thing a 5. I don't know. I was about to say I know it doesn't deserve it, but maybe it does, dude.
Yeah.
There's something about rewatching these movies and like having expectations. Like Robbie pointed out earlier, when he's like, I am Dracula and I welcome to your house. First time I saw it, I'm like, that's not how you say that line. Try it again. Take 2. You know what I mean? But then when you see it again, it's like, no, it's cool. You just accept these things. And the more Dracula movies that I watch, the more I appreciate what they didn't do and then what they did do and these subtle changes that they made. And I really think like structurally, this one is like this might be my favorite Dracula adaptation. I might like this more than I'm giving it a higher score than I gave Nosferatu because it's tighter. You know what I mean? It's way shorter, but I mean, don't get me wrong. There's things that Nosferatu does that is way, way, way better. But there's like no fat on this. There's nothing about it that I don't like, and I just adore it. And I could just live in it forever. Like as soon as I watched it, I'm like, oh, I wanted to put on the next one. That's why I bought the sequel and shit. And then I wanted to watch Brides of Dracula. And it's just, I don't know. And I'm not that big of a Hammer horror guy, but I think I've kind of like my brain has cracked the code, and I now can enjoy these things to their fullest. I think.
Yeah.
Robbie saying Oliver Reed is amazing. Hells yeah. He's in this crazy movie we got to cover sometime called The Devil. There's a Jesus rape scene. It's insane. It's like banned. You can't get the movie. I had to buy it, an Italian version, but you can't stream the thing. It's hard to come by. But all right, a 4 from Link, 4.5 from The Stew, and a 5 from me. I had these. I was going to put these up. Fredrick Cooper's art. This dude's a badass. I just love his art.
Freaking amazing, dude. Yeah.
He really he specializes in like these old classic monster movies. But I use some of his art for the thumbnail. But I love this one and then this Christopher Lee one that you guys have been seeing the whole show. So cool. Fredrick Cooper. Check him out on Instagram. Dude is the shit.
Let me ask you this real quick.
Please.
If I could only watch one other Hammer horror movie or Hammer vampire movie with Christopher Lee in it, what would you recommend? I can only watch one more. One. What would you recommend?
I don't think Robbie, if you happen to still be in here, you'd probably be better off to answer that. Because I haven't seen some of them. I saw only once, and they kind of blend together. I was just like binging them for a minute.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dracula AD 1972, where he comes from the future. Cool. It opens up just the way that it opens up. It's Peter Cushing and it's Dracula and this crazy horse and buggy chase, and it's them in the past, and then it ends up in the future. And there's all these like modern day fucking hippies that are in a jam band. It's like so fucking crazy. But the sequel, that one, and the sequel to that, Satanic Rites of Dracula, I feel like that's the most one of the most celebrated ones. But I mean, Prince of Darkness is quite satisfactory. You're gonna get a lot out of it. But I would say honestly, watch Brides of Dracula, the one that follows this, that doesn't have Christopher Lee in it, that does have Peter Cushing.
Is that the Prince? Is that the one where it's kind of like a slasher? You were saying?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's got some crazy set pieces, but I mean, like a lot of these movies, like it starts out really, really great, and then it does get slow for after the middle section. Robbie's saying Christopher Lee is not in it, but Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, which again Robbie did, I think last year.
Yeah, that
For,
looks interesting as shit. I do need to check that one out.
So it's like a prototype blade, yeah. And I remember all the panel; they seemed to enjoy it too when Robbie covered it on the channel. So yeah, next week, man, next Thursday, we're doing Martin. Very, very excited for that. Like, the reason why I want to do this is I've mentioned to you guys a handful of times. The world had got a heavy dose of vampires and shit after this, because not only what Christopher Lee was doing with Dracula, but this kind of caught fire, and there was just vampire movies left and right all through the 60s, all sorts of studios taking their crack at vampire and Draculas, and this is like this modern day twist on the vampire tale that I'm very excited for you guys to see. I think it's on Tubi. I own it because I'm cool. I'm cool like that, but I'm pretty sure it is on Tubi. I hope it is, at least. And then next Sunday, no show this Sunday, but the following Sunday, I put this out there now in case anybody wants to watch these and follow along. I'm on episode 3 of Midnight Mass. We'll be getting together with Peter and Eric at 3:00 Central Time next Sunday. Not this Sunday, but the following one. Midnight
First
Mass.
time watching?
Yeah, first time watch.
Okay.
3 episodes in. I'm really liking it, but it's a bit of a slow burn. They're like,
Yeah,
first
that
of all, it's like 7 episodes or an hour long. I'm like, I had to hit up
takes a
Peter and
minute.
Eric and be like, you guys, I appreciate you guys for spending fucking 7 hours getting ready for an hour conversation. But it's cool. It's cool so far, and I've heard nothing but great things. So I'm sure it's going to get even cooler, just like over there on Ink and Insights. What you got going on, Stu?
Thanks, man. Yeah, last night we had Nick on talking about our favorite books of 2024, and our predictions and hopes and dreams for 2025. We'll be back again next Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then what else we got coming up? Absolute Book Club Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. I think that's going to be on Fable's channel. Add one collection down. Check out me, Scotty, a couple of Sergio, Matt. Got a great panel there to talk about Absolute Superman 1, 2, and 3.
Boo, yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you for having me, fellas. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here, my friend. And then again, Martin next week. Go check it out. Appreciate all you guys being here with us tonight. Mr. Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers, Rogue Collecting, Christina Payne. Appreciate you. Sal, you are appreciated as well. Rogue Collecting, 9-panel grid. My brother from another, and SoCal Dan, you old son of a bitch. He was here before the show started, but I never saw you during the actual show. It's noted, SoCal. It's noted. But
hope you're good out there in Cali, Dan.
I know. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, bro.
I know. Sad stuff. Keep it together out there. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next week for Martin.
Children of the night. What music, thanks.